Alright everybody, welcome to the first episode of my series on Sword Coast Legends. I'm Reptilian Cow with ProNoob Gaming, and this is the first of what I hope to be many videos about Sword Coast Legends. We're currently in the second preview weekend. I don't have access to the first one because I didn't pay that much money for the game, but I am lucky enough to get into the second preview weekend, and then the third will be, I believe, next week, actually, starting, or the week after, and then into the full game. Now, for this preview weekend, I don't have access to the main campaign. Nobody does, really. We've got Dungeon Master mode, but we also have character creation, so we can take characters through the custom content created by other players. So first off, we're going to start off with the character creation. We'll go through and look at a number of classes and races, and hopefully this will be kind of a longer video. So I'll try and add some annotations if I go back and think about it for the different classes and races, to make it a little bit easier to find what you're looking for. But this video will be just to focus on the character creation, but Dungeon Master will come in the future. So let's dive right in. So starting off, we've got this nice little 3D viewer here, which I always find hilarious. It's top-down view, CRPG style, so you don't actually get to see your character all that much, but I do definitely enjoy a good character creation. So to start off, we've got male and female gender, of course. We can do either or, but this is where the fun starts. So let's start with our races here. We've got humans, elves, dwarves, halflings, half-elves, and then sub-races in between. So for humans, we've got the human variants, so basically just what race you want to be. For elves, we've got moon elf and sun elf, and wood elf. Dwarves, we've got the gold dwarfs and of course the shield dwarves, and each of these will have a different effect on your character. And then we've got the lightfoot halfling as well as the strongheart halfling, one of my personal favorites. And then of course the half-elves don't have a sub-race. They're kind of silly like that. Either you're a half-elf or you're not. But one of the cool things that they added to this, and it doesn't really go into it that... Oh, there it is. Got a mouse over it here. So for the background, so this will change your starting attributes as well as a bonus that you get. So let's see. Let's go... Don't even want to get into the classes just yet. But let's start with the elf. So for a moon elf, we've got increased dexterity and intelligence. They're immune to sleep. They've got a bonus to search, and they have bonus proficiencies. So if you're a class that doesn't normally get them, you get longsword, short sword, short bow, and longbow. And we'll go into a little bit more on that when we start go to the ability section. But you can actually use your level up points to be proficient in weapons or armor that you normally wouldn't be. So if you want to be a rogue and run around in full plate, I'm pretty sure theoretically that's possible. It'll be quite a heavy point investment, but you can do it. Yeah, so we've got the elf, the moon elf, and then sun elf. You've got dexterity and intelligence, again, immunity to sleep, bonus to search, and short sword, long sword, and short bow, and longbow. So that's a little, pretty much the same. Now, with the wood elf, we've got dexterity again, but this time wisdom, still immunity to sleep. We've got search, mask of the wild, and fleet of foot. I'm not quite sure what those do. Well, we can probably figure that out later. For the dwarf, we've got the gold dwarfs, who are constitution and wisdom. They're resistant to poison. They've got dwarven toughness, which I believe is just an HP boost. And then they're proficient with battle axe and hand axe. So if you want to be a wizard with a battle axe, save yourself a point and do it there. It's technically possible. And then with our shield dwarves, more constitution and strength this time, and then they also get light and medium armor proficiencies. So by default, you'll have medium armor proficiency even if you don't get it as a class. For the halflings, we've got the lightfoot, so dexterity and charisma bonuses, and they're naturally stealthy, so halflings typically make very good rogues. I'm the type of person that likes to go against the archetype, so halfling fighters are probably some of my favorite. With their small size, typically they get you know, bonus AC in older D&Ds. I'm not quite sure about 5e. I'm pretty sure though. But since they are a small class, they get higher AC versus larger opponents, which is, you know, useful for a fighter. Typically their weapons don't do as much damage, but with the amount of feats and, you know, ways to build a fighter, it doesn't really matter. But we've got Strongheart Halflings as well, and they get a Constitution bonus, which is cool. And then Stout Resilience and some more damage resistance to poison. For Half Elf, like we said, no sub-races, and humans get a bonus to all their ability scores, so just a +1. And then the human variant, they get 3 points to apply in their ability scores. They can do a maximum of +2 in one score. And then they get +2 skill points, which is actually pretty darn powerful. So that's actually a pretty powerful thing you can do. So let's go into classes, because backgrounds are going to take a while. So with our classes, we've got obviously the fighter. Then we go to the cleric, who, so you see where it says weapon proficiency, simple weapons. What that means is they can only use simple weapons, you know, only equip them in this game. Normally they just have a negative to use it. But if you are, say, a dwarven cleric, you automatically have proficiency with battle axes, so you could be a cleric running around with a battle axe and not have to spend any extra points to do that, which is pretty cool. We've got, of course, the classic rogue. Simple weapons, light crossbows, light long swords, rapiers, short swords. Stealth skills, or more importantly, search skills and disable trap skills are very important in Sword Coast. There's traps everywhere, especially in the custom custom DM modules. DMs can put traps wherever they want. So having a rogue in your party is definitely a good thing. Now, I don't believe that search and disable are exclusive to the rogue class, but it just kind of fits the archetype. Rogues do an insane amount of damage, and they've got some actually pretty cool ability variants. Then, of course, the classic wizard. Elven wizards are usually, when I do play a wizard or a sorcerer class, I typically prefer elves. Not because I particularly like the elves or, you know, for RP reasons, but they get proficiency in longbows and shortbows, which as a wizard is pretty useful. You never want to be running in with a dagger or a quarterstaff, and crossbows just take too long to reload and, you know, are less entertaining for me, I guess. But that's why, you know, elves make good wizards. They get bonuses to intelligence already, but then of course they get the bonus weapon proficiencies. Then of course we have the paladin, which is more or less a cleric and a fighter put together as far as 5e is concerned. The build paths can vary quite heavily between, you know, tank, holy avenger, or just a badass two-hander smite, you know, smash everybody to pieces type paladin. And we'll get into that once we get into the abilities again. Then, of course, everybody's favorite, the Ranger. These guys both have trees for dual wielding, they have trees for bows, and they also have an animal companion, Beastmaster tree. Surprisingly enough, Rangers actually make really good tanks in this due to their spellcasting abilities. They can get like bark skin and stuff like that, so they can actually be pretty darn powerful when it comes to frontline fighting as well. And of course the classic, you know, Drizzt is a dual-wielding ranger, which if you want to, you can do in this game. So that's definitely a possibility. And we're back to Fido. So let's jump into the backgrounds real quick, and I won't go through all of them, but I'll just kind of give you an overview of what they do. As far as, you know, in-game bonuses and whatnot. So if you're a charlatan, you get starting gold to 15, you get a bonus to charisma, and then a passive bonus to wisdom and charisma saves. So if you're a class that runs off charisma, or you want to have a lot of you know, extra money, because charisma does affect your buying and selling prices from vendors. And of course, there's magic items that'll increase your charisma and stuff like that, but you can get a bonus right out of the gate. Or if you you know, have a class that its abilities are based off of charisma, it's not a bad start. Criminal background, plus to dexterity. You start in gold 50, and you get plus 2 to lockpicking. So it's a good place to start for a rogue, because they can use both of those. Let's see, entertainer, bonus to charisma, nearby allies here for 1 hit point every 30. So that's pretty cool, actually. I didn't know that. So you get I mean, 1 hit point every 10 seconds. It doesn't seem that useful. However, you know, it could be the difference between somebody bleeding out or getting back up. So that could be pretty useful. Let's see. I think it's the merchant. Yeah, so he starts with extra potions, which is actually pretty cool. Potions are pretty important in this game, especially in the harder difficulties, so starting out with, you know, plus 5 healing potions could be a good boost in the start. I want to see which one it is. I think it's the Noble. Yeah, you start with 800 gold, and some brandy and cherry bread. So, 800 starting gold may not seem like a lot, or, you know, have a big impact on the rest of the game, but what this allows you to do is basically really anything that you need for your character to start out. So if you start out as a wizard, and their starting equipment doesn't allow you to, you know, have a longbow because you're a wizard, you can buy one from a vendor without having to save up for any gold. Let's see. Well, here's a great tank, Outlander. So bonus constitution, -2 physical damage taken. So basically you just get hit less. Or it doesn't hurt as much. So there's a lot of these, like, yeah, so Urchin. Plus 10 move speed, that'd be fun. That could definitely be useful. Now, one of the, you know, it's kind of awesome, but it's kind of silly to me when you're going to your appearance. They actually have tons of sliders. Now, like I said, it's a CRPG, so it's over the top. You know, controlling 4 characters at the same time if you're in single player. But there's so many customization options that you can run with. Make people look old, young, change their skin color, change their hair color. You can change their hairstyle on a slider. We can zoom way in. Looks pretty painful. This light is a little distracting. And of course the bald. Now, as I said, you've got, where's the blind eyes? There we go. So you've got a lot of customization that you probably won't see much of. I know that the character portrait will be based on what your character actually looks like, so that'll be, you know, some good incentive to actually really get into the character customization. Make him look like a fish. But you got eyes, nose, cheeks, and lips and ears. Make him fly. And then for your starting equipment, so since I'm a fighter, you get access to basically tons of equipment here. So let's give her a great axe instead. Or maybe... Oops. Can I start with dual wielding? It's not gonna let me start with dual wield. Probably have to take a feat for it anyway. So, and then there's a lot of armor options that we can choose from. Put robes on our fighter, because we can, with the dagger. And what you can do, though, when you go into... you can examine it, and so this does, you know, 2 to 8 slashing damage. 1 hand of proficiency required. Our battle great axe here, 3 to 12 slashing. Requires proficiency for great axe. There we go. Now here's our stats. So it is a point by system. So since I'm a human with a racial variant, you've got 3 racial points, and then the point buy. So, you know, give myself a 17 strength, 10 dex, boost my constitution since I'll be fighting. You know how this goes. Honestly, since we're a fighter, we could probably just dump these stats and go straight for min-max here. But this isn't going to be a character that I actually play. This is what I wanted to get into. So with your every class, there is tons of customization options. So starting with the fighter, we've got Battle Master, Champion, 2-weapon fighting, Great Weapon fighting, Protection, Martial, Archery, skills and proficiencies. This is what I was talking about with you. You could theoretically make your rogue wear heavy armor if you wanted to. But basically, starting out, you've got 5 points. So most things cost 1 point, some of them cost 2, some of the bigger unlocks. So if you're ranking up an ability you already have, typically it's 1 point. However, if you're getting a new ability, aside from the first tier, it's going to cost you at least 2, sometimes 3, depending on where it is on the tree. So Commander Shout is pretty cool. It's like Bless, basically, but warriors get it, so everybody around you gets a +1 to hit and damage. Second Wind is a heal, self-heal type thing. Now, these, the reason why this is filled out so much is because the fighter just has these proficiencies standard. So he can basically use all the weapons he wants, he can use any of the armor that he wants, and he doesn't have to spend any extra points to do so. Now, lockpicking, I don't think he can actually learn. Oh, no, he can. Alright, so there we go. Even if you're a fighter, you can still pick some locks. And then search, obviously, is important when you're looking for traps and that sort of stuff. Let's see here. And this is strange to me. So being a fighter, archery has never been a really good choice. But getting actual abilities on the archery tree is kind of cool. You're obviously not going to be as powerful as, you know, a ranger or something like that with a bow, but it is very cool that you can actually spec into it and get some pretty cool abilities with it. I can imagine on harder difficulties you're going to want to carry ranged and melee weapons, so spending some of that those skill points on being effective at range is definitely not a bad idea. With Martial, so these kind of fit into you know, any kind of melee tree that you can build. So this is hilarious. So Flying Foe, you hurl a spear attached to a chain of enemy. On hit, the target takes 5 to 12 damage and is pulled towards you. So for a tank, this is really good. I mean, both of these are, but Victorious Surge is also good for you know, really any melee class, since it actually heals you and does a pretty good chunk of damage. So you're not going to go wrong in the martial tree. Protection, obviously, for tanks. Great Weapon Fighting is for using a two-handed weapon. Charge is always cool. And then 2-weapon fighting, dual wielding, obviously. Morrowind Attack, it's kind of hilarious that you get it right out of the gate, but basically it's an AoE, which is always good to have. And then we're back to the champion. Let's see. Alright, so there is the fighter. Let's move over to the cleric. And we'll go to our abilities. So we've got the Divine Tree, the Righteous Champion, the Light, Life, War, Protection, and Martial again. And skills and proficiencies. As you can see, they have much less skill proficiency. Their martial weapon proficiency they don't even have. Simple, you can use a hand axe, but not a battle axe. They've got all the armor proficiencies except for heavy. And they can't use scimitars or rapiers, that sort of thing. So with the Divine Tree, Produce Flame. So basically, it's a nice little range cantrip. So cantrips basically don't have a cooldown. They're not very powerful, or they have a very short cooldown, but they're not very powerful, and typically you start with them. So as a cleric, you start off with a little bit of a fireball. And you can actually make that cantrip stronger, which isn't a bad idea since you'll be spamming that quite a bit. But this also gives them access to some pretty cool spells outside of that. So Earthquake is pretty awesome. It's got a really long cooldown, and it requires level 15, so you know it's going to be good. But it's pretty sweet. So you get Flame Strike, Regenerate, which is always good. Healing as a cleric is pretty much your primary role, so anything that allows you to do that is definitely a good idea. The Righteous Champion, so we've got Divine Strike, which is just a, melee attack. We've got Healing Word, which is your first heal spell. It's got a 20-second cooldown, so just keep that in mind when you purchase it. It's not going to be a spam heal. And then, of course, you can get some Undead Turning, which is what I was looking for, not over here. Undead Turning, which to me has never been all that useful in any D&D campaign that I've ever played, but I'm sure it will be in this game. Let's see here. We've got the Light Tree, which is all about buffing, I believe, and healing. Yeah. You got a lot of buffing spells and healing spells. This looks like it actually might be a damage spell, which is cool. Radiant damage, cool. Then let's go over to the Life Tree. We've got Bless, which is always a good thing. So this gives a +2 to saving throws instead of +1 to attack and damage, like in previous ones. Aid. So basically the Life Tree is all about healing and buffing as well. Oops. Then we got the War Tree, so looks like we can't even spec into this for a couple levels, but this is where we get Smite, Radiant Pulse, Arcing Smite. Ooh, Chain Lightning. Very cool. That's cool. I haven't seen most of these myself, so Protection, clerics can definitely make good tanks, especially when you give them self-buffs. They can stand up to a lot of beatings. And then they have access to the Martial Tree as well, so like I said, any melee champion or any melee character is probably going to benefit from those quite a bit. And then we're back to Divine. Alright, so let's get into my personal favorite, the Rogue. And this is what's awesome. So with the Scoundrel, you get Hide, so you can actually, more or less become invisible. And then, of course, Sneak Attack is the bread and butter of the Rogue. Extra damage when you have an advantage, or when you're first opening combat. Ooh, this extra damage is automatically a critical hit if done from stealth. Sweet. And then, so we've got some Pocket Sand, which is pretty cool. Sudden Strike is very powerful. Combat Advantage is definitely a great thing to have, and this gives you that, as well as doing a decent amount of damage. I forget what they called this in 3.5, but basically you take a hit to AC to get a bonus to your crit range. They didn't have one, for crit range, but they had one for, I think it was like Reckless Assault or something like that, where you take a negative to your AC, but a bonus to your 2-hit. But anyway, so Scoundrel, Thief, Assassin, Arcane Trickster, which is going to be so much fun. 2-weapon fighting, and then Martial again, and then Archery, very cool, and skills and proficiencies. So one of the things I wanted to check, so this does allow you to learn great swords. Now let's check. The Scoundrel. So it doesn't look like there's a weapon restriction for Sneak Attack or Sudden Strike. Hurl a Dagger, so a ranged attack. Misty Step. So basically this is a teleport, but you have to... well, I guess you could do it anywhere, so that's cool. I always thought it was a targeted ability, but you can actually teleport anywhere. But if you do target an enemy with it, it will do some damage right out of the gate. Dummy, that's awesome. Death Strike. Well, that's cool. It's kind of a good finisher. So Arcane Trickster, so one of the cool things about the way that they did the interpretation of the 5e rules is normally what you'd have to do is specialize. You know, when you hit a certain level in any class, there's usually different spell trees in 5e that you can go down. But this allows you to kind of pick and choose and cherry pick exactly what you want from those. Arcane Trickster in 5e in the Player's Handbook looks like so much fun. I haven't actually gotten to play a 5e campaign yet, but if I did, I'd be an Arcane Trickster. Because, I mean, having a rogue with sleep and mage hand and stuff like that is kind of amazing. But any kind of rogue with spellcasting abilities, you know, rogue sorcerers were very popular back in the day of Neverwinter or rogue wizards in Neverwinter, Neverwinter Nights and stuff like that. But giving rogues these abilities innately is just so much fun. So you've got sleep, hold monster. Let's see. Ooh, a weapon buff gets pretty strong actually. And then, so this was one of the skills they adopted directly from the handbook. So with Mage Hand in 5e, you can use it to basically flank a target if you want to. So this basically distracts them and gives you the combat advantage, which is hilarious to me. Two-weapon fighting, pretty self-explanatory again. Bleed, that sort of thing. Two-weapon fighting is typically the way that rogues go. Which is not a bad thing. It was a heavy point investment, though, back in the day, so I never really found that much use in it as a rogue. However, it was definitely doable. And the skills that you got pretty well fit into it. Now you can just kind of point by what you want out of it. Riposte is, or riposte, whatever you want to call it, is actually a very powerful skill. So you basically... melee attacks have a 50% chance to be parried, which is just insane, and when you parry, you do basically a counterattack. So if your rogue gets into a melee that you can't really be in and you don't have a way out, riposte can be a great tool to help it survive until the rest of the party can come help them out. And again, martial, just always, you know, useful for a melee class. Sundering armor, that sort of stuff. The archery tree again, but the reason why I was looking at the greatsword, so I have a D&D character that's been one of my favorites for years now. He's a goblin. He started off as a goblin rogue, wielding a greatsword, and so obviously you can't be a goblin in this game, but I think I'm going to try my best to, you know, make use of the greatsword. But I'm getting off topic here. So the wizard, so with wizards, they basically, you know, sorcerers and wizards, as far as in-game go, like video game style, as opposed to pen and paper. I think Neverwinter Nights did a really good job of making the determination, but other than that, they're pretty much the same thing. What they did for wizards in this game, though, so you've got Arcane, Frost, Lightning, Flame, Manipulator, Transmuter, Summoner, and then your skills and proficiencies again. So basically you get to, you can really specialize in an element, or you can kind of cherry pick and mix and match. Manipulator is basically Trickster Rogue with a couple more buffs. Elemental Weapon, giving it to your party is fantastic, especially force damage, since not a lot of things are immune to force or resistant to force. But you can, you know, put your enemies to sleep and then hit them with a fireball or whatever you want to do. But the Transmuter skill, or skill tree, to me is probably the most appealing. I know a lot of people like to play mages as just blasters and go in there and, you know, blow stuff up. I've always loved the utility that a wizard or a rogue can, or a wizard or a sorceress can bring. So the transmuter tree really just calls out to me, because I mean, who doesn't want mass invisibility? Come on now. But area effect slow, haste is just ungodly. For, you know, if you have a dual-wielding ranger or dual-wielding rogue or something like that, popping haste on them just makes them just tear things apart. Stone Skin is obviously great. Damage resistance is never a bad thing. But just Transmuter, it just calls to me. Summoner is pretty cool. So you get the Conjure Animal, and basically, depending on what level you are, you'll get a different creature, and you'll have to rank it up to get stronger monsters out of it. But it's also got Mel's Acid Arrow, one of my favorite spells. I don't know why, I just think it's cool. And then you've got Hold Monster, Grasping Hand, Cloud of Daggers, which to me is kind of hilarious. And then, of course, Mordenkainen Sword. So if you're a fan of, you know, wizards, you kind of know the Mordenkainen stuff, and, you know, all the great wizards of the past. So it just cracks me up. But in Arcane is where you're going to get your Mage Armor, Stinking Cloud, which is always good, Cloud Kill, which honestly has never worked. Let's be real here. Disintegrate is, you know, can be useful if they can actually hit something with it. And then, of course, the bread and butter Magic Missile. Who doesn't love Magic Missile? So, Frost, Ray of Frost, Ice Storm, Cone of Cold, Odaluke's Freezing Spear, Lightning, Thunder Wave, Lightning Bolt, Static. What does that do? Oh, increases the power of your lightning. And then, of course, the ultimate Chain Lightning. Everybody loves Chain Lightning. We've got Firebolt, which is your cantrip, which is basically what you're going to be spamming quite a bit. And I think you can do either one of these. They're both cantrips. Immolation Sphere is hilarious. The cooldowns on it are huge, though. Same with Fireball, so 120 seconds for a Fireball, which is just kind of hilarious to me. And then Overchannel, you basically take damage over time, and your cooldowns are doubled, but you do more damage, so... or it's maximized damage. So where it says 2 to 10, you'd just be doing 10 every 4 seconds. Or on your Meteor Storm, it'll constantly be doing the 240 damage, you know, half fire, half bludgeon, the whole time. So really, you would only use this when you're about to cast all your big stuff, and then go back to using Fireball. Let's see. We went through Manipulator, Transmuter. Okay. So, like I said, the Paladin is kind of fighter, cleric mixed together. They've got their own flavor on everything, but that's basically what they do. So we've got the Crusader, the Avenger, the Life Tree, the War Tree, Great Weapon Fighting, Protection, and then Martial and Proficiencies. So Crusader's where you're going to get your actual Paladin abilities, like Lay on Hands, Judgment, Divine Grace is actually pretty nice, and they get some healing utility in there as well. You can get rid of invisibilities with that. The Avenger Tree is also very Paladin flavored. Heroism is actually really powerful. And I would definitely recommend taking it if you're going to be any kind of melee paladin. So 1 extra attack each round. So there's not really technically rounds, but basically you attack more often and faster. So it's a very powerful thing to have. And then of course Retribution, which is just the old standard for any kind of video game with a paladin. Let's be real here. And then Avenging Angel. So you sprout wings, you run faster, you do attack speeds, and you get bonus strength. So basically, think of the Paladin from WoW when you're in the Avenger tree. And then with Life, basically, same thing as the Cleric. You've got Restoration and Aid and Bless. Revivify is pretty nice to have. The War Domain will give you well, same exact thing. So Divine Smite, Radiant Pulse, Arcing Smite, Chain Smite, and then Great Weapon Fighting, Protection, and then the Martial. So like I said, they're basically a cleric and a fighter put together. They just don't get the dual wielding or anything like that, but they have their own flavor to it. And then the Ranger, which is a lot of people's favorite. So and they actually are pretty powerful in this game. I'm sad to say, well, not sad to say, but I usually just don't prefer Rangers because of the flavor that's always put on them. So we've got Hide in Plain Sight, which is always a good thing to have, and then Favorite Enemy actually gets pretty darn powerful as we go up. Let's see here. Combat Focus, again, you're gonna want these. These are very important to have. And then the Beastmaster. So you've got a Ranger Companion that you can level up. Basically, it's a summon that you get. Longstrider is pretty cool if you want to be running around the battlefield, but not necessarily necessary. If you're a melee ranger, then go for it. If you're ranged, unless you need to be kiting really hard, which you probably won't be since you have, you know, frontliners keeping everybody down. It has its uses, but, you know, take it what you will. And then I believe, yeah, so Spectral Wolf Strike and Go for the Eyes are abilities of your animal companion, which are very cool. Bear Trap is actually pretty sweet, because it will lock them down. So it's a ranged route, basically, is what it is for a single target, which is super cool. And then, of course, Poison. I guess I should go through the trees like I did last time. I'm breaking my formula here. So we've got Hunter, Beastmaster, Nature, Warden, 2-weapon fighting, and then Martial, and then Archery, of course. So Goodberry is a nice little heal in the early game. I guess it can be... it's still not that great late game. But we've got Restoration, Bark Skin. So this is what makes you or anybody else a tank. So you get, you know, armor class right out of the gate, and then lightning and bludgeoning resistance, which is pretty nice. Entangle is a great area of effect route, and then Cloak of Thorns is, you know, every time somebody hits you, they get hit. We've got the Warden, which Hail of Thorns, Lightning Arrow, Splinter Armor, Swift Quiver. So this is where you get to improve your Archer, Ranger trait. Warden's definitely a good one. So combining, like, say, the Warden and Beastmaster with a little bit of Nature Grow in there, and you've got kind of the standard archetype for Rangers. But you can always go the 2-weapon fighting route with Martial and, you know, Hunter, and you're going to be, you know, kicking some booty pretty hard with some Bark Skin in there for good measure. And we're back to Fighter. Alright, so that was just kind of a brief overview, kind of give you a taste of what's to come. What I think I'll do for you guys is upload a separate video for each class, and we'll go through and more or less break it down even further and go through each skill and that sort of thing, and you know, go from there. But the portrait's kind of cool. I just want to show you this before we go. So it does base the portrait picture off of your actual character model, not a preset. So that's pretty cool, to be honest with you. But this is going to do it for the first overview of the character creation. I'm reupload, and I will see you guys next time.